My coworker stole my lunch every day, so I made him regret every bite. Have you ever worked with someone who treats the office fridge like their personal buffet? Yeah, I had one of those. And this is how he learned his lesson the hard way. I work in a mid-sized office, the kind with open cubicles, endless meetings, and a shared break room where everyone stores their lunches, snacks, and drinks. I always brought my own lunch because I enjoy cooking and, honestly, it saves me a lot of money. But a few months ago, I started noticing something strange. My food was mysteriously disappearing. At first, I thought maybe I had just forgotten to bring my lunch. But then it happened again, and again. First, a yogurt, then a sandwich, a slice of cake my wife had made. And one day, my entire meal was gone. That's when I realized this wasn't just me being forgetful. Someone was stealing my food. The next day, I wrote my name in big, bold letters on the lid of my lunch container. It didn't make a difference. My food kept vanishing, as if I was stocking an invisible restaurant. Things got even more frustrating when I started hearing casual comments around the office. Wow, lunch today was amazing. I could eat that every day. Someone here is a really good cook. That's when I figured out who the thief was. Brian. Brian was the classic lazy coworker. Always chatting people up, always finding ways to dump his tasks on others. He loved bragging about how much money he saved by not wasting it on stupid things, which, apparently, included never bringing his own lunch. And the worst part? He wasn't even trying to hide it. One day, I saw Brian walking out of the break room holding in my lunch container. He popped the lid open, took a deep sniff, and went, this one's special today. Then he sat at his desk and started eating like he had just picked up a takeout order. I was stunned. The guy was stealing my food right in front of me. I could have confronted him on the spot, but honestly, that wouldn't have done anything. He would have denied it, laughed it off, and at best, given me a half-hearted, oops, my bad. HR, don't get me wrong, but I doubted they'd do much more than issue a verbal warning. So, I decided to do something much better. If Brian wanted to keep stealing my lunch, I was going to make sure this was the last time he ever took something that wasn't his. That night, I went home with a mission. Confronting Brian wouldn't work. He'd just lie, laugh, say it was just food, and go right back to doing it the first chance he got. If he was going to learn, it had to be the hard way. So, I prepared a special lunch. At first glance, it looked like a regular meal, chicken with rice and sauce. But the magic was in the secret ingredients. I used one of the spiciest hot sauces available, the kind that comes with a "use with extreme caution" warning on the label. Not satisfied, I added ghost pepper extract, so potent it can cause hours of burning. To top it off, I mixed in pure capsaicin oil, which is basically the concentrated essence of what makes peppers burn. Anyone who ate that without knowing, they were in for a world of pain. The next day, I placed my bait in the office fridge and waited. And Brian, being Brian, didn't disappoint. Just before noon, I saw the idiot get up and casually head to the break room. I waited a few minutes, then discreetly moved to a nearby hallway. I stood there, pretending to check something on my phone, just waiting for the moment to strike. Less than 5 minutes later, I heard a loud choking sound from the break room. There it was. Seconds later, a chair screeched as it was shoved back and a desperate coughing fit followed. I turned the corner and saw Brian sweating like he had run a marathon, clutching his throat and gasping for air. His face was red, and his eyes were watering so much he could barely keep them open. Water. I need water. He grabbed a cup and drank like he was stranded in a desert. But, as anyone who's ever eaten extremely spicy food knows, water only makes it worse. He coughed even harder and was now desperately rummaging through the fridge for milk. But you know what wasn't there? Milk. What the hell was that? He gasped, gripping the counter like his life depended on it. That's when I strolled into the break room, calm as could be. Something wrong, Brian? He turned to me, still red as a tomato. What kind of psycho eats something like that? That's not food. I crossed my arms and shrugged. Well, that was my lunch. I like spicy food. He blinked a few times, struggling to process what I had just said. And then, it clicked. Wait, that was yours. Oh, Brian. I said, pretending to be shocked. You didn't know? Because that was my lunch. My name was even on it. The panic on his face was priceless. Before he could say anything else, a voice behind me chimed in. What's going on here? It was our HR manager. And that's when Brian realized he had stepped into a much bigger mess than he expected. Brian froze at the sound of HR's voice. He was still red, sweating, and struggling to speak. The manager looked at him, then at me, and frowned. Can someone explain why Brian looks like he's having a meltdown? I crossed my arms and let out a dramatic sigh. I think he accidentally took my lunch. But, you know, I like my food really spicy. Brian finally found his voice. That wasn't food. That was a chemical weapon. The HR manager narrowed her eyes. You took his food? She turned to Brian. Did you eat my name's lunch? Brian opened and closed his mouth, searching for an excuse, but he knew anything he said would only make things worse. If he admitted it, he was confessing to stealing. If he denied it, he'd have to explain why he was in agony. That's when another coworker, who had been watching, decided to chime in. Oh, so that's why people's lunches have been going missing. Someone else chuckled. Makes sense. I've seen Brian walk out of the break room empty-handed, but never bring lunch from home. By this point, Brian knew he was screwed. This is ridiculous, he tried, still catching his breath. I just thought it was a random meal. The HR manager crossed her arms. So, you admit you took food that wasn't yours. Brian paled. He had just exposed himself. She sighed and pointed toward the door. Come with me. He shot me a death glare before walking out with HR, but the damage was already done. The whole office now knew Brian was the lunch thief. And, as expected, after that talk with HR, he became much more discreet. He didn't get fired, but he got a formal warning and, for some reason, started bringing his own lunch every day. And me? I went back to enjoying my meals in peace, without worrying about them disappearing. Did I go too far, or did he deserve it?